Hey guys, my name is Liza, and this is my podcast, Learning to Live, where I talk about things that I've experienced, things that I've gone through, and the things that I've learned. I think that we all kind of go through life trying to figure shit out along the way, and sometimes it takes a couple of tries. So today, I first off want to thank you guys for listening to my last episode, if you have, or any episode at all. Whatever floats your boat. You can kind of scroll through the list. There's 50 of them now, and that's kind of cool that you have, all this variety of things that I just talk about endlessly. So, some are more insightful than others, most definitely. Some are a little more heavy than others, and some are just light and fun. So, take your pick. As far as, what's going on today, I want to first let you know about my book. If you haven't heard already, it's called The Sober Poet. It is a #1 new release on Amazon, which I'm so excited about. Still not used to saying that, but if you haven't gotten a copy, it's $14.99 on Amazon, or you can connect with me on any form of social media. That's Instagram, Facebook. That's pretty much it. And that is accessible on my website, which is lizaroe.com. So that's lizaroe.com. You can email me through that website as well, and I will get you a signed copy as opposed to ordering it through Amazon. Also, Amazon takes a pretty good chunk of the profit there. So if you would like your book to come in a super pretty envelope with a handwritten note from me, you can contact me via my website, lizaroe.com. Now, today, honestly, I don't remember what the last thing I spoke about was. But today, what's on my mind right now is the concept of humility. And that's because I've learned a lot about that term in the last year or so. When I started seeing my life coach, there was this level of terror. I was afraid to speak to this woman because she is intuitive, so she knows things that I'm not even aware of about myself. And, I see her once a week now. And recently, as I was telling her and informing her about the book and this journey of the book, and I'm kind of excited, and I'm telling her things about it, and then I told her about my experience meeting some people that were on the level of fame. Some people that I really admire. Well, actually, just one person. And then I was starstruck by other people in the vicinity who had the same type of fame. And I became someone else, different parts of me. I mean, it was, still me, but it was ego, like just full-fledged. And she reminded me that a lot of people, when they go through this journey of kind of coming up and growing and evolving, they have a tendency to forget where they came from, to kind of lose themselves in it, to lose sight of their purpose. And for me, that's to get this book into the hands of other people. To remember that this book is for me 10 years ago, 5 years ago. This book is for the old version of myself, which I have to hold with me in order to remain humble. I have to remember that part. That part of my journey is still within me. That I can still see those parts of myself. And if this isn't making sense to anybody, I'm going to break down a couple of things, because I feel like for a long time, humiliation and humility and humble, those, they're all related words, right? Let's just also acknowledge the fact that I'm doing my podcast in a bathrobe. Glasses, no makeup. This is the face today. It's snowing outside. This is what we're going with. So call it a practice in humility, okay? If you will. First, the definition of humiliation, okay? Let's start big and broad. That is the action of humiliating someone or the state of being humiliated. Again, I'm not a huge fan of these definitions that include the actual word in them, but we're just going to go with it. And then it mentions some synonyms: embarrassment, mortification, shame, indignity, disgrace, okay? Nobody wants to feel humiliated. Do we agree? Yes. Okay. Then break it down further. The definition of humility. And I love the way that they've emphasized how to pronounce this. Humility. The definition of humility is a modest or low view of one's own importance. Humbleness. And similar words include modesty and meekness. Lack of pride. The definition of humble, we're at the base now, is having or showing modest or low estimate of one's own importance. The second definition is of low social, administrative, or political rank. And a verb is to lower someone in dignity or importance. The synonyms for the adjective humble are meek, respectful, submissive, unassertive. Okay. What do we do with all of this information? As far as humility goes, to me, I think of Brene Brown, and she talks about vulnerability, and she tells herself whenever she goes to a public speaking thing, she tells herself, don't puff up, don't shrink. And that means to be right-sized. To be right-sized is to know that as a human being, you have value, you have worth. You deserve all of the things. And at the same time, to know that I'm just like everybody else. I'm no more important than one other person because of this accomplishment. To know that we're all on the same level. And to me, that's what it means to be right-sized. To not puff up, to also not shrink, to be balanced, with knowing who you are, who your value, what your value is, that you have value at all, and to know that you're not better than anyone else at the same time. Does this make any sense? I think it does. I think it makes sense. I think I explained that pretty well, actually. Good job. So when I'm thinking about humility these days, I'm thinking about it from the stance of how can I keep it intact? How can I remain humble in the light of the praise that I'm getting, not just for my writing on Instagram, but now for this book? I have to consciously remind myself to stay humble, to appreciate the journey that's brought me here, and to keep it kind of in the forefront of my mind, to remember that this book, The Sober Poet, the reason I was able to write this collection of poems from a recovered alcoholic is because I went through some shit. And now I get to be grateful for the journey that I'm on now, which is to share that past experience with other people, which is so cool. I keep thinking, and this sounds horrible, but I keep thinking, I keep wondering if I died suddenly, in a car crash or an accident or something, if this book would, blow up or somehow gain more traction because I'm dead. And I feel like people might, I don't know why I feel this way, but, some people, they just don't get that level of reach or like fame or anything until after they're gone. And then people appreciate it. And I just really hope that doesn't happen, because that would suck. Like, to go through all of this, and it's not fame that I'm looking for. That's not my point. My point is that I want this to spread. I want it to gain momentum. And I want it to do it quickly. And that's because I know that there are people that are struggling. Especially now. So, as far as humility goes, for me, the way that I stay humble is to keep my ego in check. To try as hard as I can to lead with my heart and not my head. To remain aware of where I've been, where I am, and where I'm going. If I keep all of those things in mind, which is no easy task, then I'm pretty good. Like, my humility is pretty solid, and I feel good about that. You know, when I start to see my ego flare up and I lose sight of that humility, of how to be humble, I start to take things for granted. I will basically, I don't know, the level of pride is just like a little too up there, a little too high on the pedestal. So when I kind of take myself down a notch, you know, it's not, I don't want to beat myself up like, oh, you need to check your ego right the fuck now. Like, you need to sit down. You're being way too loud. You're being way too proud. Sit down. Be quiet. Listen to other people. It's a fine line, because that's also a lack of humility. A lack of, I don't know, it's still ego. You know, being on one side of the spectrum or the other. To be right-sized is to be right in the middle, where I appreciate myself and others. And I also know that we're all the same. You know, I can be proud, but still humble. Like I said, it's a fine fucking line. But this is what I'm dealing with recently. I'm trying to, you know, when I was in the presence of these people that I, you know, admire, I met this artist, this musician, Marky Basie. And I love his music so much, and I've listened to it for years now. And when I met him, I was so terrified. And the whole time I'm like telling my boyfriend, like, I'm gonna be cool, it's fine, like, I don't get starstruck, like, I don't fangirl, I don't do that, like, I'm just mellow, just cool as a cucumber. And then it happened, and like, I nearly passed out. Like, after it happened, I'm saying it like it's some kind of tragic event, but it was insane for me to meet this person who, and then I had to remind myself, he's just a guy. He's just a guy. We're the same. We're just people, and just doing the thing that we love, expressing ourselves through art. What a beautiful thing. But after I met this guy, I like nearly went into cardiac arrest. My left arm became stiff, and I was like, is this a heart attack? Is this what it feels like to die? Because that's what I felt like in that moment. But when I had met somebody earlier in the night that I wasn't really familiar with, but he was still on that level of like, I mean, he was opening for this guy that I so admire. And when I met him, I took a picture with him, all of a sudden, I was like, oh my God, will you buy my book? Will you follow me on Instagram? Like, all of a sudden, I just lost myself. Totally gone. Like, I didn't even know this guy. Like, it was just in my head, the level that he was at. I was like, oh, maybe I can use him to promote my book. Maybe I can use this guy. Terrible thoughts started coming into my head. And it was only for a couple of minutes. But once it was over, I was like, whoa, what just happened? Like, I think I blacked out, because that was not me. It wasn't the truest version of myself. And so my life coach, as I said, has reminded me of the value of humility and keeping that intact, and how I need to walk through this whole journey, not just of the book, but of life, with humility, with a sense of humility, because that then engages my authentic self. I cannot be authentic without humility, because when I am lacking humility, it's like my ego is just running everything. And I don't want to be that person. Don't you guys fucking hate those people? That are just so, I don't know. And there's a difference between confidence and humility. You can have confidence while still being humble. Those are different. But they can work together. And if this isn't making sense, I don't know what to tell you. I feel like the people that need to hear this will hear it, and the people that don't won't. So I'm just going to go with that mentality there. But this has just been on my mind because I was reminded to hold humility close to my heart and to walk with it. So these last couple of weeks, I've been focused on that. Asking myself, do I need to say something right now? Is somebody else going to say it? How can I say this and be honest, but not brag? How do I just speak my truth? And it's been going really well. When I think of it that way, it goes smoothly. And I like the person that I am. When I just think, how can I speak my truth with humility? Not puff up, not shrink. And I would encourage you to do the same. Just try being mindful, of what, first of all, you got to define what humility is, because humility and humiliation are closely related words, but they are not the same. So as far as being humble goes, define what that means to you. When have you felt most humbled? For me, I felt really humbled when I think I mentioned it in this last episode, but somebody, I don't know, anytime somebody reads my stuff, anytime somebody reads the things that I have written and they read it with emotion, I'm just like, oh my God, they're reading something I wrote. What? So crazy. It's so touching to hear somebody else's, the way their take on something that I've written and how it might hit them. I love that. I love it so much. And so I would encourage you to ask yourself, what does humility mean to you? What does it mean to be humble? So define that. When have you felt humbled? When was the last time that you felt humbled? How can you humble yourself right now? What can you do today that will give you, or basically, stoke that sense of humility in you? What's going to do it for you? It doesn't take much. Or maybe it does. Maybe your ego is so hyped up that you don't even know when the last time you felt humbled was. In which case, I would encourage you to explore that. What makes you feel humble? For me, it's service work, right? I used to volunteer in a horse stall, scoop and poop, because I thought it would be a humbling experience. I was right. It is. So working with animals, I've found to be really humbling. People that are needy, there's so many opportunities for us to humble ourselves in the world, especially now. There's so much that we can do to be of service. And to be of service, I think, ultimately is a very humbling experience. So, in an attempt to not make this episode more than 20 minutes, I'm going to stop my rant there. And I hope that this has resonated with you. I hope that you've been able to relate to what I'm saying here. And if you haven't, just wait for the next episode. It'll be fine. Thank you so much for listening. And I hope that you have an absolutely wonderful day, an absolutely incredible week ahead. We're about to get into spring. Spring has sprung, bitches. Okay, I don't know what's happening anymore. I am so excited for your week ahead, as I am for myself. So, okay, let's do this. Yeah? I'll talk to you next time. Thanks for being here. Bye.